The other thing that has been dominating the news over the last day or so that I'm almost sure will come up at the debates tonight is this photograph, this horrific photograph that's been going around of this dead guy with his dead daughter who drowned trying to swim for it to get into the country. And it's I've found that equally disturbing and just disgusting, the way the media has been trying to use this picture for a political agenda. You've seen the picture, I assume, Rob?
Yep.
It's
it's tragic to see, and to me, if it's proof of nothing else, you got to shut down the border so that people aren't continuously trying to make this journey.
Well,
that's what needs to be done.
It's funny is that you could just as easily make that argument. I mean, like, just as easily make one or the other argument
Don't
to
have an
avoid this.
incentive
You
to come there. It should be so locked down.
Could be an argument for a wall. You know,
Yes.
like, yes, you should have. It's so locked down that nobody would even try to do this. But the truth is that you could also use it as an argument to say we should just let people in, right? Like either one of those things might avoid.
Well, sure, if you want to
these
get rid of
people
social benefits.
dying. No, but I'm just saying, even if you don't, like, if your point is just that you don't want to see these people die.
So then we need to have such a secure border that people know, hey, if you go there, there's no getting in. And all these people who are in internment camps or whatever the fuck it is, I don't understand the way asylum works. I don't understand why these people have a claim to asylum. People should be deported next to immediately so that you get rid of the perverse incentive to try and cross the border illegally that's putting these kids at risk.
Well, I tend to agree with you, but I'm just saying, if you look at this horrific picture of this dead kid, and oh my God, the picture is just brutal. It's like this girl like holding on to her father's, like clinging on to him. It's really, really disturbing. But look, you could also make an argument, like the left-wing argument, that this is why we should just open our doors and let them come in, and that way this wouldn't happen. They wouldn't be swimming for it. Now, you can make other arguments about why that wouldn't work or would work, but it's not even... to me, what I just find so crazy and so outrageously disgusting, like genuinely despicable. And it goes to the same type of thing that I was talking about before, where they try to play on people's decency. They play on your humanity for power. They play on your humanity to push a political agenda. But it really is something when... like how selective they are when they show dead children on TV and when they don't. Like when the news will broadcast or print images of a dead fucking child. Because look, if you want to talk about propaganda, you want to talk about how you influence people, there is nothing from if anybody has a shred of decency, if you are a non-sociopath, and you have any humanity at all, there is nothing that gets a more visceral reaction out of you than seeing a dead child. I mean, that's like about as bad as a thing as you can see. It's like the worst thing in the world. Like seeing a dead person in general, but really seeing a dead child. It plays on all of our... We are hardwired to have a reaction to that. If you're religious and you look at it from a religious perspective, you can, there's an obvious reason why, right? Because of like, it's the most evil, immoral thing or whatever. And if you just look at it from a pure biological, like Darwinian perspective, you can also see why we would be hardwired to find a child dying as like the worst thing you could see, because it's like, that's how the species continues on and that whatever. But the reality is that this is going to get a visceral gut reaction out of a lot of people. But I remember when they, even in wars, I remember when the Iraq War was going on, and there was actually like laws against showing the dead bodies from the war. And then I think Obama overturned it, but they still didn't like release the pictures and stuff. It's like they'll say you can't show this image because it's just too graphic. It's too horrible. We don't want to see pictures of dead kids.
I might be just 1,000% wrong on this. Was Vietnam ever declared as a war? Or we were just kind of fighting over
the
there?
last war that was declared by the Congress of the United
Was World
States
War II?
was World War II.
Yeah, so I think with
There hasn't been one declared war. There has not been a congressional declaration of war since 1942.
So I think with Vietnam, they said part of the reason public opinion was so against it was that they were allowed to actually get footage. And since it wasn't a war, they were allowed to show the footage. And so just public was actually able to see the horrors of war and the death. And they
Well,
really
this had a big, I know for a fact that this had a big impact on public opinion.
Yeah.
Over there was seeing photographs and some videos of what was actually going
Can you
on.
imagine seeing Yemen daily?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's like, and I have seen some of the pictures, but never on mainstream media outlets. Always just like on the internet and by like independent journalists who push it out. But it's really, you gotta like, it's hard when you see pictures like that to start thinking with the like analytical, logical part of your brain, because it triggers the emotional part of you, which is, by the way, somewhat normal. This is the evil thing about like their tactics. You don't want people to not have an emotional reaction to dead kids. You should see dead kids and like really like have a fucking reaction to that. But think about when, I'll tell you, this is when I've seen dead kids, or really dead and like grotesquely injured kids. Okay? I saw it. There was the big one of the Syrian refugee going into Europe. Remember that little boy who like washed up? That one. There's this one. This one that we're just talking about now, of these South American immigrants trying to come over, or South American refugees, whatever you want to call them. Migrants, whatever. And here's the other one. For all the fucking wars in the Middle East, right? All the you know, I don't know, I don't actually think anybody knows, but what the actual number of how many kids have died as a direct result of all of these wars that we've been fighting all over the Middle East and Northern Africa. But the one time that the mainstream media showed me dead kids and horrifically injured kids was in the quote chemical attacks that Assad supposedly was responsible for. So that's when you see the dead kids. And there's something like, you gotta like take a look at that and really think it through in your mind. It's, they only show you dead kids when there's a policy that they want to push you toward directly attached to it. And it also, like you kind of just got at right there. It's like, you realize how powerful that is to show someone a dead kid. And it proves in a weird way that we are still somewhat of a decent society, because if we weren't, they wouldn't even be trying to manipulate you with that, because they'd be like, oh, well, people don't even care. But people do care. They do care when they see a dead kid. And it just makes you kind of wonder, like, what effect a decent media could have if they did show you these fucking kids in Yemen. It did, instead of just talking about it. I mean, like all throughout, I remember what they were covering. I mean, it didn't get the coverage it deserved, but when the Congress voted against against Trump funding the Saudis in their war in Yemen, I didn't see any of these fucking pictures. Dude, there was some guy, and I think he was in our Facebook group, in the Part of the Problem Inner Circle, but there was some guy who made like a video compilation of one of my interviews with Scott Horton when we were talking about the war in Yemen, and he put pictures of like starving kids over it, and I had to turn it off, man. Like, I couldn't even watch it, and it's my conversation that we're having. But when you actually look at these starving kids, man, and it just makes it so real. It's like it was like making me sick to my stomach. Like, I couldn't fucking watch it anymore. And that's, you know, for someone like me who, like, you know, is like hardcore anti-war, and I talk about the shit that's going on in Yemen quite a bit, it's like, it was almost like not necessary for me to do it. But for people who are like maybe some people need to see that and like actually get a little bit fucking sick about what we're doing over there. But we don't see that. We don't see that. And it's the same media. It's not that they have a problem with showing dead kids in the Middle East, because as soon as they're blaming Assad and trying to get us into another war, they'll show you all these kids. They'll show you all these pictures as soon as they're trying to like lure us into a war. But when it's a war that we're already fighting and the kids are dying, for some reason we don't choose that as a worthy time to report on these fucking dead kids. So it's the whole thing. It's like, it's despicable. It's just such an outrage.